everyone. I am back. Wait, I just said this. I forgot to introduce myself. Okay, I'm Dr. Elizabeth Sanchez-Arvizu, with Psychology for Geeks, and I am very excited about this new panel because, um, I I don't know, like I've been wanting to do this for a very long time, and I think it has been sort of like on the calendar for a while, and it's finally happening. So we're all here, and we're super excited, and we're just gonna geek out about Avatar: The Last Airbender, because yes. And I have a lovely, lovely um, panel that I put together of people I randomly found online, and I stalked for a little while, and then I was like, we must become friends now.
Yes.
uh, yes. So, like I actually did that. So anyway, I am friends with everyone here now because everybody loves Avatar. So I'm gonna have everyone sort of like introduce themselves. We kind of already did this before because I knew everyone, but not everyone knew each other. So I think we're just gonna go the same sort of route because it's still the same on my screen. So Charlene, if you could get us all started with the introductions.
Yep. Hi, I'm Charlene McPherson. I'm an LCSWC out of Maryland. I run, own, operate Nerd Adventure Therapy 20, Nat 20 Therapy. We use geek and nerd artifacts in individual therapy, but what we're well known for is using therapy. Right now we're using Dungeons and Dragons, but at some point I would love Avatar the RPG as one of my for one of my therapeutic games. But that's what we're doing right now. I treat teens, young adults, and adults over age 30 because we never get anything fun. And so I made a fun social skills group.
Yes, adults also need to
And
have
that's it.
fun, and have fun
I know.
therapy.
Oh, also I have a podcast. Yeah, I have a podcast with Benjamin here. Although I pointed out he's it may not be up in the actual video, but it's called Mental Health Quest, where we go through and we talk about mental health diagnoses, what it actually feels like to have those, as well as inviting on experts to talk about different types of treatment and things like that. So you can check that out on wherever you can find podcasts. That's it.
And I said it, but I think legitimately I did find everyone here because of a social media name, and I did reach out to Charlene because her thing on social media is Nat 20. So yeah, that is like one of the best names, and
Yeah,
I think because Psychology for Geeks is such like a plain sort of like basic name that every time I come across someone who has like a really awesome name, I'm like, why didn't I think of that before? So now I'm like, well, I'm collecting all these people and they're gonna become my friends. And, uh, you kind of did a segue for Ben as well, and Ben also has another podcast, and that's how I found it.
Yes. So, hello, everyone. I am Dr. Benjamin Tights. This is the first time I'm saying that out loud, like for wide audiences. I just graduated with my doctorate last month. I work in clinical and forensic psychology. I'm based out of Southern California. And I have the mental health quest with Charlene. And then my other podcast is called My Hero Therapy. I run that with my good friend, Dr. Nicole Hassler, who's based out of Buffalo, New York. And we talk about all things mental health and psychology in the My Hero Academia anime. You can find that also where podcasts are found. I have presented with Charlene and Elizabeth at LA Comic Con, and then Elizabeth at WonderCon also. So I like to present on panels at cons. It's fun.
Oh, and also I interviewed you and why am I blanking on her name? I feel so bad. Nicole, for your podcast, and you've been in a bunch of my my panels as well. So check them out; they're really cool. I think the one that you did without Nicole was Star Wars, was one, and that was a really good one too.
So I did the Star Wars one. Nicole was supposed to be on that one, but she got sick beforehand. But we did do our video that you were interviewing us about our podcast about My Hero Academia. So both those videos are really great. So check all of Elizabeth's videos out. Everybody who's watching this needs to check out her whole playlist on YouTube.
Yes, exactly.
Book out a day and just watch them all.
Just on a loop. And keeping in with the theme, I also reached out to Sarah because she has a really cool Instagram page that I love. So I'll let her talk about that.
Hi everyone, I'm Sarah Trotsky. I'm on Instagram as Iro Training. I started that account in 2020 after I had just recently watched Avatar for the first time. My profession is a personal trainer. I own Soul Fitness Elements, so I enjoy and help people get strong through lifting weights and getting them confident. And I love Avatar, and I'm happy to be here.
And she has a lot of like really cool videos dressed as Korra. So you just check it out.
Yep, I have. Yeah, definitely. You can see Korra squatting at the gym. So
You would have had to.
And
So just the picture of buff Iro,
yep,
working out. Is that the video?
doing pull-ups, everything.
And once again, I think this was like probably like the creepiest way I approached. Because I just texted, like I sent a message to Sarah and I was like, I love you, we have to be friends. And that's what I said.
I love it.
It was just so bold and I was excited to receive it.
Yeah.
I was just like, okay.
I was like, this is like so cool. And that's the coolest thing, being part of like the Avatar fandom online, is like I have been able to meet so many amazing people, like not just in the United States, like in the world. Like it's been super cool.
It is. Avatar is one of those things where, like, as soon as I was like, oh, I love Avatar, like, a lot of people are like, yeah, me too. And every time I see a post of, like, how long it's been since it came out, I'm like, oh, I'm old. Because I don't think, like, it just I do rewatch it, like, every year, multiple times. So, like, it doesn't feel like it's old or anything. And sorry, I completely took over. I didn't let Sarah talk, but yeah, her practice is a really cool name.
Thank you. Yeah, my name is Sierra Cuevas, and I am a licensed professional counselor in New Jersey. I started my practice, I want to say maybe about 2 or 3 years ago, and it is called Jasmine Dragon Counseling. And of course, when I was thinking of a name for the practice, I wanted it to kind of combine all of the things that represent the like therapy that I do. And also, like I said before, it's dramatic, poetic, and has a nice ring to it. And so it's definitely taken from Uncle Iro and his wisdoms and his teachings and his connection to tea. And when I think about therapy, I also think about tea, because we get a lot of tea in therapy. So I'm just really excited to be here. I love all things Avatar related, and I'm definitely ready to geek out about it.
Sadly, I love tea. Just jasmine tea has a very strong flavor, so I don't actually like it.
Ooh, it's like one of my favorites. That's what I'm actually drinking right now. It's like a black and blue jasmine.
Came prepared with the jasmine tea and everything.
It's like I'm on point. Like I have to be. Like I'm here.
Yeah, and I see you have the
I want to get tea
I
now,
know,
so we can all have tea together.
It's so hot here.
That is just like simple. Like,
I see you have the Appa and Momo in the dream, like behind you. And they are so cool. Yeah. Those are like my favorite. I have a fanny pack that I take everywhere I go because I don't like carrying bags. And that's sort of like my con bag. And I forget what it's like, but it's a picture of them in those outfits and stuff. And it's like it's my favorite sequence. Yeah. Well, okay. So I I had no questions, and I'm supposed to be like interviewing you guys or whatever. So how do you, okay? Sarah talked a little bit about sort of like the first time she watched Avatar, but I want to hear from everyone else. Like, what was the first time you were like introduced to it, or like how did you come about like watching it for the first time?
I have to look up when it came out because I can't remember.
I actually came to it. Yeah, I came to it much later. I actually was an adult, like in my 30s, and it was always on the list of things. You know, once I started getting into my true nerdiness, I was like, all right, it's on the list. Need to. Started watching it. Obviously, fell in love with it. As Ben and Elizabeth know, Korra is kind of more of my favorite than the original. The original's a very like, okay, this is a comfort, I'll watch it. But Korra is a really, really good story and character growth and, you know, all that different kind of stuff. So, and then I read the comics that are in between Korra and, you know, Avatar. And then what else came? There was a whole bunch of other stuff that's coming out. Watch the show, the new show. That was pretty good. But and then we did that panel on Avatar, and I was dressed as Korra as well for that panel. But that's
and I would never forget because I kind of got booed a little bit. It was close to booing because I said that I don't like The Legend of Korra, and everybody was like, "Ooh," and I was like, "Listen," I was like, "It's not bad. It's just
how
like
quickly you go from friend to foe."
I said it is. I agree. It's like a really like good storyline and all that stuff that I just personally couldn't connect with it. But like that's one of the things that I love so much about sort of like the Avatar universe in general, because there is something for everyone, right? Charlene mentioned like the Avatar role-playing game. So like if you're not really into Avatar but you like RPGs, that's a good way to get into like the universe. There are, you know, the comics that came out, the new I reached out to someone because I wanted them to be a part of the panel, and I just remember they said, "Oh, I watched Avatar for the first time," and I was like, "You have to be like part of it," because like it was a very recent thing, and I don't really know a lot of people that have just recently watched it. And then they said, "Oh, but I've only seen the live action," and I'm like, "Oh, okay." Like I'll contact you again when you see me. You're like, I just don't know a lot. But again, like it's a really
odd and dark story. Like it's not super dark, but it's a little dark. My first ever panic attack where I experienced like an actual panic attack for the first time was during the live action movie in the movie theater.
Oh, no.
I had to leave and like be escorted out because I couldn't breathe. And like when I think back, I'm like, I must have been a super fan.
Oh, wow.
Because it made me panic to be in there and to watch what they did to it.
Oh God. Well, that's why when we're saying the words live action, we're not talking about that one.
Yeah. What one, Benjamin? What are you talking about?
Right from everyone's collective memory, you know, through energy bending, you know.
I went to watch Nothing at the theater one time with my siblings, and it was with my siblings and one of my cousins. And when we came out, we were all so mad because right before we went to watch Nothing, we binged the whole series, right? We're like, we want to get paired, we want to do this. And then we got there and we're like, this is the worst. And we were just like complaining about it the whole time. And there was this 5-year-old kid that was walking behind us as we were leaving the movie theater. And he's like, that was so great, Mom. And I was like, oh. I was like, you don't know what's good. I hope that child has now recovered and seen the error of his ways.
Oh my God. I'm surprised that, like, I mean, for a 5-year-old kid to go see that movie, like, those parents made some choices.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. I'd be looking at the parents like,
that's the movie you took your kid to, really?
out of
Really?
everything else.
Yeah, I mean that movie, that experience. I almost got myself kicked out of the theater just because I started complaining. I was like, "What is this shit?" Like, I was with my friends, and we're all just like, "No, what?" We were just questioning from the literally from the get go, from the beginning. We're just like, "That's not right. That's not right." Like, we were just like shaking with repressed rage. Um, it's the movie that shall not be named.
Mm-hmm.
So this fandom, we get connected by our love of, the fandom or our hatred of the should not be named movie. It seems like. Wait, but Ben, how did you like get into Avatar in the first place?
So I had to double check because I couldn't remember the years and everything, and I'm bad with math. So apparently, Avatar: The Last Airbender came out in 2005. So I definitely didn't see it then because I'm like, wait a minute, no. At that time I was like in like middle school, high schoolish time. I'm pretty sure I did not see it then. So I think it might have been like it was in high school that I saw it. So it was in the time that it was still like running,
Mhm.
but it wasn't like right when it came out because it ended in 2008, which is when I like started high school. When I was like in the middle of high school, I think I was. I'm really bad at math and numbers and everything. That's why I'm a therapist, not a freaking medical doctor. Despite my mother's best wishes for me. Um, so I I got into it because I have these friends from high school, and one of them has been blowing up my phone right now. So here's to her. So I went to an arts high school, and we to school where everybody's artsy and very nerdy. And so Halloween is basically everybody's favorite time. Everybody, and I mean everybody, including the principal and the teachers and everybody dresses up for Halloween. And so a couple of my friends had dressed up as Avatar: Last Airbender characters, and like I was like, "Oh wow, this looks so cool!" And like I vaguely recognized them from like that because I'd seen commercials for it or whatever, but I hadn't actually seen the show.
Mhm.
So after I saw them dressed up as it was Azul, it was Tylee and Toph
Tough.
and Toph, Tylee and Toph. I was just like, okay, I'm gonna watch the show because I want to be able to like connect with them through that.
Mhm.
And then I was like just like hooked. Like I'm pretty sure like I binged the whole thing as best as I could at the time that we didn't have binging available to us. So, I was like looking online to find the old episodes and whatnot. Um, and then basically from then on, I loved it. And then when Legend of Korra came out when I was in college, I remember specifically and I'm pretty sure I'm okay with the years for this because again, math. The finale of was it the first season of Korra when I was a senior in college? Maybe years are not so good with me, but either way, I remember I was actually with a couple like classmates of mine. We were in this mental health group called Active Minds, and we were in DC for a conference. And yeah, I was close to you before I knew you. And I was in the hotel room, and like I'm trying to watch the the finale, and like they're like, "Come on, we have to go like to the event." And I was like, "No, I need to finish this. I need to watch it." Like, because they were airing it like online, like at the time that it was like airing on TV or whatever. So like this is the only time I can watch it. So I like was late to this conference that I was like supposed to be a part of because I have to watch this episode. And
Priorities.
yeah, I had my priorities in order.
Yeah.
I wish I could say that at the time I was justifying it because of mental health. I was not. I was just I want to watch this, and this was the only way I could watch it. So, and the internet in the hotel was not great, so buffering. You don't know whoever
Oh,
Avatar or Legend of Korra, and they're in the
Korra
middle of a
buffering was the worst. I
Yeah.
had the same experience.
So that was my experience.
Unlocked memory that I didn't know was there.
More memory,
Repressed one.
so yeah, and since then I've just always enjoyed it. Like I would read. I remember in college or after college, and no, yeah, after college, I was reading this Avatar fan fiction that takes place after Legend of Korra. And for me, I'm very picky about fan fiction. Like they need to still like fit within the established norms of the universe and everything, and like the personalities can't be too dissimilar from their base.
Mhm.
I have a lot of issues with fan fiction that go crazy with that. Like I understand why people do that because fan fiction is your way of expressing these characters in your way. I get that, but like for me to read it, I need it to be very specific. So this was to set place after Legend of Korra, so it was all new characters, and it was such a really immersive story. It's called The Journey of Tala. If anybody wants to go online and read it, it's amazing. They really kind of delved further into like the impact that the creation of the United Republic had on the other worlds, and how basically the other nations were somehow beholden to it because of economy, and like, well, they're the largest economy, and so we need to trade with them.
Mhm.
And then like still lingering resentments of the Earth Kingdom of, wait, you took away our land for this and whatnot. And it was amazing. They delved into some really deep lore that they kind of added in their own stuff that really made a lot of sense. And the character of Tala, the Avatar, she was a lot like Korra in that she was like very headstrong and like, you know, kind of just an action oriented, but she had like a lot of like deep issues. She had some trauma. And I was like, they did such a good job with this. And so I really enjoy this whole universe because there's so many ways that you can express character development and themes of mental health and just political commentary. We're not going to get into politics too much here, I hope.
Well, you actually bring a really good point because I watched it kind of around the same time you did. Back in that time, I was super into like Cartoon Network and Nickelodeon and stuff because they had really good shows. And I think that's how I came across it. But I never thought of it in terms of like, oh, I can use this for therapy until way, way later. That I was like, oh, yeah. And then I just came to love it even more. So I kind of have two questions for Sarah. One is, how did you come across Avatar? And also, how did you started with the whole idea of doing IR training online?
Yeah, so the first time I had watched it was 4 years ago. So it was during the quarantine when, the world was shut down, and I was doing online training with clients. And one of my clients, she goes, I just watched one of like the best, cutest shows. I think you would like it. And I'm like, okay, what's it called? And she goes, Avatar Lost Airbender. I'm like, oh my God, the one with that boy with the blue arrow on his head. And she goes, yeah, you just trust me, just watch it. And like my husband and his brothers grew up watching it. I didn't have Nickelodeon growing up, and by the time it came out in 2005, I was like already in college. So I probably wouldn't have been in my like genre to watch. So I appreciate watching it as an adult because right away you're getting all of like those like real life lessons and the wisdom and all that variety of like topics and character diversity and stuff. So what I did was I started following a whole bunch of like top like Avatar meme accounts on my personal Instagram. And then I was like, wow, this fandom is like actually really big. People like know about this show. And then I was like, what if I like create my own account, like just specifically Avatar related? And I did. It was originally called Hanging with Appa, which is still out there, and I don't post as much. And it was just kind of clips and quotes from each episode. And then like a month later, I was like, I want to get a little bit more like niched into this and be more specific with like the kind of posts I'm doing related to, since I was personal training, and kind of how can I fit this in also with like a health and like wellness perspective with kind of the wisdom that is part of this show. And so that's kind of what I did. I started posting like IRO quotes and kind of like related messages about them, and it kind of all spiraled from there. You know, I got obsessed about meditation. I have guided meditations on the account, affirmations, and just a whole bunch of like fun stuff. And so, yeah.
Wait, am I like making this up, or do you also have a Discord that goes along with it?
Well, I do have a Discord. Yeah, yeah. It's not like super active, but like I also have my posts in there, and I post meditations in there, and yeah, it's kind of just, I wanted to just overall on Instagram, on my page, and also Discord, I just wanted to create a safe space for people to feel welcome, to feel heard, to feel seen, to feel understood, to feel supported, to feel loved, like all like those good vibes, right? And so, and bringing people together all with the common of we love Avatar.
Yeah, I think it overwhelms me every time I even think about it, like how big the fandom is, because I followed you for a few years, and like ADHD brain, sometimes I'm like, oh, shiny, and I forget what things I love, but then your post will come up and I was like, oh yeah, this is why I love Avatar. And then I was like, ooh, following everyone else that's doing like Avatar related content. And for being a show that's relatively old, there's so many people creating like, oh, I don't know about fan fiction, I don't look about Avatar fan fiction, Loki fan fiction for me all the way. But other like people like creating art, and oh, I just saw one the other day that it was like this realistic like portrait of like the Fire Lord family, like with Zuko and Azula, and like the mom had like her face sort of like not ripped off, but like covered in like a swab of paint, and it looked so realistic. It was like so good. Anyway, maybe I can find it and put it here. But point being is that I can't, like, it's so old, really, right? And I mean, it was a couple of years in between, like the end of the I guess Avatar: The Last Airbender, and then like the Legend of Korra, and then we have a long time between anything else, really. And I feel really like a bad fan because I have not read any of their books yet, and I'm like, it's on my list.
Okay. They're really good.
That's what I keep
haven't read them.
hearing. And then I was like, I really, because one of like a friend of mine was like, I think it was for Avatar Shang, that you like they were saying no, like her backstory is like so good, you have to read it. And I was like, oh, I want to so bad.
Yeah, I heard the Kyoshi novels are really good too.
They are so good, like amazing. Yes, you need to be.
They're on my list of things to read, but I was literally just having this conversation with that friend from high school. I'm like, there's so many things I'm supposed to get into. Like, I have all these shows to watch and all these new things going on. Like, I only so much mental
I
space.
just have to read the Yang Chen one, because the only one that's just like sitting there that I haven't read. I've read like maybe the beginning of it, but it's really good.
Now I guess I can go on to Amazon and buy these books now.
Yeah,
They're good.
You know, that was my strategy. I was like, there's a lot of books like, you know, mental health purely related that I'm like, oh, you know, this is something I need to learn for, like, you know, become a better therapist or whatever. And then because I have the nonprofit too, I have to learn about like that as well, because I know nothing. And then I was like, yeah, I'm just gonna buy these books, and I have a pile of books like right next to my TV where I see them every day, and I'm like, it's not working, man. Like, I bought them and they're there, and I'm like, I haven't even finished this one other one. And then I'm doing this sort of like podcasty thing with my brother as well, where I am sort of like talking about One Piece as I read it, and that is taking me forever, because then I just look at the pile of like manga that I have to read, and I'm like, it's so much. So I did the whole thing of like, I'm just not gonna read anything then, except manhwa. I mean, no. So anyway, back to you, Sarah. What have you been doing? How did you get into Avatar?
Yeah, I think like just immediately. So at the time, when I think back when I was like a teenager, maybe like 15, 14. And my mom was pregnant with my sibling. And so that was kind of at the end of her thing. And it was just my mom and I. And it was the first time that my mom's like got interested in a cartoon with me. Typically it was for me, she put it on, you know, we just like body double her. But she was invested in it, and it was pretty cool to have that connection with her. And we from there would always watch it. And then when my sibling was born, we'd still have it on. And so it kind of became more of a family show in that way, or a way of connecting us. And that was something that I really appreciated. It's like being able to share that with my mom, and talk about the characters and things, and actually invite her into my world and her be interested in it. And so I think that would definitely start the love from there. And then when I went to college, of course, Cora, and also became a bridge because my partner at the time, we did long distance. And so we watched it together. But again, that buffering was the unlocked repressed memory of like streaming it from the sites, and it just stopping in the middle. And I remember the time that it stopped, it was during the Juan episode, where we were figuring out like the first Avatar, and that's the worst time for it to buffer, because I was locked into that story right there. It's like, I need to know everything. How did it happen, you know? And then from there, it actually, when I was struggling in school and college, like with, you know, ADHD, all of those lovely things that make school difficult, one of the expressive arts theories and philosophies is about doing whatever is present in the moment and allowing it to inspire you. So I was procrastinating a lot of my papers by watching Korra, and I ended up in Avatar. So I ended up using that to inform like all of my essays that semester. Like I used, and it reconnected me to the work as a counselor, and allowed me to complete those essays and to feel interested in them again. And so I would say like it's definitely impacted me a lot as being a bridge to like family, my relationships, and also to school and counseling. So I think it's followed me like a pretty consistent thread.
I think I was in college when I started this tradition of like watching the whole series, like just like binging it, like over the summer. That's kind of how it started, because like during the semester I was kind of busy, but like over the summer I was like, yeah, I have time, you know. And um, I think that's when I started sort of like rekindling my love for it, because I was not. So the way that I connected with my siblings was through cartoons. So I think it started with this. Avatar was one of them. We watched Pokemon together, and then what is it? Star Wars, the Clone Wars. That's another one. And then eventually, like once we became adults, it started with like all the Marvel and DC movies. We just go watch them, and that's kind of how I connected with them. But when it comes to, sadly, I don't think I've ever really used Avatar in therapy sessions, because I haven't had a client who really loves the show. I used it a lot for creating content online, or sometimes I would say, oh, so this is one show that I really like because this thing happens, right? But it wasn't like, it was sort of like a way for me to explain like some sort of like concept, or uh, something that I was trying to encourage the client to sort of like realize, but they weren't aware of the show. And um, once I started sort of like being mega geeky just with anyone, um, I think it took me like 3 years to convince one of my friends to finally watch it, and then she was like, "I loved it," and I was like, I told you that it was so good and that you're gonna like it." And like, I just didn't like it. I just didn't think, because it's like Sarah was saying, like it's one of those shows that it's for like the whole family. Like kids will get all the funny jokes, but then adults will get like the same jokes, but also like there's like layers and layers to this, like the way that they did the characters, like there's so much growth for all of them. And I think to this day I still argue that Suko has one of the best sort of like character growth arcs, like in anything I have seen before.
Yeah.
um
Mhm.
I actually had a client who, you said you haven't used it. I had a client who actually, like, literally came out and said that they were afraid they were going to be Azula.
yeah.
And like Azula, like literally just came out straight out and said it that way. And I was like, no, I think you're more of a Zuko. And then like went on to like, kind of like explain, how, we can use coping mechanisms and you're learning things and you're obviously here in therapy. So, all that different kind of stuff. And they really loved the Kyoshi novels. Like, they were a huge, huge fan. Even would come in like, I think there was a tracksuit, sweater and sweatpants set that you can get that's Avatar, would like wear that around. So they were, and so like one of our first conversations was like, no, I think you're kind of a Zuko. Let me tell you why. Instead of an Azula. So it definitely can be.
I've been thinking a lot about Azula as a character, and I don't know if because I'm going through like my own, healing journey, or because I understand her perspective more as an adult. But I've been thinking about a lot of her character. But I have a question for everyone here. Is there a character that sort of like you started thinking a lot about, and then you're like, actually, this character is a really good character?
I mean, someone that you initially didn't like and then later on did like, or
Kinda, where you just kind of like, oh, they're a good character, but then after a while you were like, no, you don't understand. Like, this is a great character.
I would like to speak I can speak on this for a second. All the characters, first of all, even Azula definitely is one of those, but just like fresh starting the past 2 months, I've started thinking a lot about Appa. And like, because Appa's obviously like the animal companion, when we talk about the main characters, I don't hear as much about Appa. I hear Appa as like, oh, we love Appa, but like what Appa actually meant to the story. And it came out of a friend of my partner. We were all hanging out and he called me Miss Appa. And I was like, he's like, because you put the team on your back. And I was like, whoa, that was so mind blowing. And it might have been the nicest thing anyone's ever said to me, to be honest.
That's ever.
Yeah, it was like, I was like, wow, I've never been like complimented in this way. I didn't know what to do with it. But it also, makes you feel seen. And then I started watching like season 2 more about like Appa being lost and how he meets, with the guru, and like that entire episode, and it just brought tears to my eyes. I was just like, wow, like I'm seeing Appa in such a different light, and how he drives the story and the development of the other characters, and how he's like that connection to the air nomads that Aang has, and has his own trauma. Like Appa has his own trauma as well, and like how they heal together. And I was like, wow, like I feel really connected to Appa these days. I got the Appa hat and like have all these little trinkets and things of it. And yeah, I would say like Appa is someone that I've been exploring more for mental health purposes, especially
that's
trauma.
a good one, because usually the animals in the universe are like just so stinking cute. Like turtle dogs are my absolute favorite, but it's just they're just so cute, right? And then like Momo, obviously so cute, Appa so fluffy and cute, but like I didn't like really think past that. But it really brings, because for me, whenever I watch like the Appa's Lost Days, I always think about my doggo. And I'm like, I understand. And would like just go through all these links. And like you're right, like he was sort of like Aang's last link to the world that sort of like for him disappeared overnight, right? And yeah, we don't really think about the impact that Appa had. And everyone on the team too, because Toph started learning how to, manipulate sand because she lost Appa. There was nothing like for her claiming to be the greatest earthbender, not being able to protect this dear friend was, really bad.
Like that moment she's holding up the the tower, and she's just like, and you see Appa being pulled away, and she's like, I'm sorry. I was just like,
I know.
An impossible decision, but it really does show this show that both Legend of Korra and Last Airbender really do show those kind of connections with animals that are more than just, oh, it's just a pet, right? Like, unfortunately, I have not had the honor of having an animal companion in any sense. I had a pet turtle when I was little, and they died pretty quickly after. So yeah, that was traumatic for me. But I never got to build up that relationship with an animal.
Mm-hmm.
I'm watching these shows, and you really see how deep these connections go, how important they are. I mean, Appa for Aang, Naga for Korra, and even Momo. I mean, Momo's, I think, debut, was very important because it was at the time that Aang was just really starting to come to terms with the loss of his culture. And then, oh, look, there's Momo, who's part of that culture, but also represents his childhood self. Appa has definitely been that link for his whole life. But what? Momo. I left out an M. Momo, throughout the story, he's not just a comedic relief. He is there to kind of remind people that it's okay to have fun and seek out pleasure and joy in the moment, even when all hell is breaking loose. And I think that was really important that they had Momo there to kind of balance Aang's growth. Because I think without Momo there, I really do believe that Aang would have developed in a different way. He still would, he still would be Aang. He still would be very compassionate, everything because of Appa, but he might not have still embraced his inner child as much. That's the way I see it. I like you, Elizabeth. I've not yet been able to have the chance of using Avatar in therapy, but I'm just waiting for it to happen so I can talk about Momo, the inner child.
But you actually that's a great point too, because I'm thinking about what it brought to the team when Momo was introduced, and it brought a companion for Sokka, because Katara and Aang were sort of
to eat him first.
having love already. But they were bending, they had that connection. And then because we see the growth, right? Like for Sokka, he was kind of like, oh, he's fine being this tough macho man, and then he's trying to eat Momo, but then we see the growth of him being like, I'm spending Momo, why are you eating him? And it just sort of it was a way for him to start caring about someone else other than his sister, right? Because he did a lot of things. Sokka did pretty much everything to make sure that Katara was okay, and by some extension Aang as well. But Momo was a completely different sort of individual that he got to start understanding and forming this connection with. And that Momo was always sort of there, because he was the only one, when Aang disappeared, Momo was there. Not even Appa, who was Aang's companion for the longest, but it was actually Momo who kept him company when he was sort of going this reflection journey is what he needed to do to fight the Fire Lord. So yeah, animal companions are the best, you guys. Does anyone else have a character that they sort of like started to see in a like whole new light?
I love Tenzin.
Mhm.
From Korra, because like at first you're just like, oh, he's just this stuffy dude who wants Korra to do her training and blah 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 blah. But you know, he really is trying his hardest. And the moment that I really started seeing deeper into his character was when he apologized to Korra for keeping her in, you know, the South Pole and not training her and feeling like he was pushing her, you know, too far and in a direction where she didn't understand. And I think that was after she went and did the
Probending.
oh, the pro bending? Yeah. And he was like, no, this is your way of learning. Like, oh, I should, you know, use this and help you learn that way and things like that. As soon as he kind of admitted to, you know, and apologized, I was like, oh, there's more to this character. And then you find out he's the last airbender, and then he's trying to repopulate the world with airbenders, you know, and then
Like he took that serious.
yeah, well, and you know, and the whole it really shows when you get interacting with the siblings later on in the Korra episode or seasons. He's interacting with Tenzin's interacting with his siblings, Boomy and Kara, I think.
Yeah.
Kaya. And they talked about how like he was the golden child because he, you know, could airbend, and you know, dad always paid attention to him more than, you know, and now you're thinking about Aang being a dad, which is just weird in general. And then Katara being a mom, also very weird.
Well, actually, not Katara being a mom, not so much for me, because I feel like she
What was
was
the mom of the-
everyone's mom. Yeah, she was the mom of.
But then, like,
Yeah.
you know, trying to, and then once the airbenders come back, like, sorry, spoilers, you know, once the airbenders come back, he's taking it on as his entire duty to go and gather these airbenders. You know, it's, there's a lot on his shoulders that you know, you didn't see at the beginning. So I think he becomes a really interesting character.
His seriousness too, and like where you think about when you get a little bit of information of how Aang was as a father, and like we saw this like 10-year-old, like this young, playful, childlike character, and then to hear Tenzin kind of share what they viewed of their father, it was like this more strict and person we don't know, right? We had to learn about it through Tenzin and through Boomy, and you know, it's just pretty interesting to think of Aang as a father. I agree.
Mm-hmm.
It is interesting because you're seeing, you know, we saw him. Okay, yes, technically he was 100-something years old, you know, chronologically, but biologically, you know, and developmentally he was 12. Then the next season we're seeing his children, and all his and Tenzin was his youngest child. So Tenzin is already like what 50 years old in Legend of Korra. So like it's a huge shift to kind of see this child that we grew up loving to like, wait, that child grew up and had a family and everything, and the ways that, and I think the comics that go in between do kind of start to show Aang's like seriousness when it comes to his protecting his culture. Really upset with the Avatar Aang fan club because he thought that they were, you know, disrespecting or whatever because they didn't sell tattoos. You know, but then like that kind of makes sense now after we saw Legend of Korra, where Aang devoted so much time to Tenzin because Tenzin was him.
It's the future.
And so I really do agree with you that Tenzin's character really shifted a lot. And I mean, also, how many times has any of us, I mean, found adults and parents and parent figures who apologize to their children figures or whatever? Like, that does not happen often, unfortunately. And especially considering the way that Tenzin was raised, like, that must have been really difficult for him to recognize, wait, I'm not right. There's different ways to do this. And then in the next season, when he's having to reconnect with his siblings and recognize that the way he saw his dad was not the way that his dad was with his other siblings. I mean, that's, you know, that's also really tough to see. I think because I'm already talking, I'm just gonna keep going for a little bit. The character that like started off for me that was just like, okay, whatever, but then like really developed further for me was actually Azula. You know, Azula is introduced as like, okay, she's a villain and she's really like devious and everything. But like in the last season, like where we're really seeing a lot of her insecurities and her I mean neuroses and everything. I you know, it's easy to write her off at the beginning as just, okay, she's just a bad
Evil.
person.
Yeah.
I was going to use a different word, but I realized I should probably not say that word. But like, you know, it's so easy to write her off, and I'm sure that that's what the writers wanted. The writers wanted you to just dismiss her as a villain and not think about it until they can hit you with, oh, but wait, here's some
How they were raised.
you know, the comparison of Azula and Zuko. You know, yes, they're both raised in that same family, but at the same time they weren't, because Zuko had his mom. His mom did favor Zuko over Azula. And how must that be like for Azula, who is basically told by her dad, you have to be the best of the best of the best, but then for her own mother to not acknowledge her, which is it's the mirror of Zuko. Zuko is being told he has to be the best by the father, but the mom acknowledged him and the father didn't. So they're both getting acknowledgement from different parents within the same unit, but in different ways. And let's face it, I'm pretty sure Ozai was not the most affirmative of parenting styles. Just my guess. So to get
You know, this is
that kind of acknowledgement from that kind of parent figure, and then when Zuko goes away, now all the attention is on Azula.
Yeah.
Now she really does have to step up at age what, 14?
Yeah, she's like a baby.
Very young.
And it's just, you know, so her character growth, you know, and she never really had much of a redemption, still didn't have, and that's okay. Not every villain gets redeemed, but we can understand her a lot better now. And that in of itself is the redemption, I think.
So one of the things that I really appreciated from the live action show is that they kind of fill in some of the gaps, right? They showed us what the interactions between Azula and her dad were when Zuko wasn't there, like the reason behind why she strove to be perfect all of the time was, right? And I was told by someone online that it wasn't canon. I always thought it was canon, but at this point, I guess I don't really care. It just like fills in like some of like the gaps, and I was like, it just makes sense in my head, you know.
Yeah.
So it's canon now for me, and it kind of is like, if you think back about sort of like the original series, that's probably the interactions that she had with her dad. They would have been like, oh yeah, good job, but next time you need to do better or stronger, or like, you know, you need to be better than Zuko or whatever. So because that's kind of like what the dad almost experienced too, right? Because there was a large so I actually recorded this thing with someone else about Avatar. Sorry guys, I was cheating on all of you with someone else and talking about Avatar. But we discussed sort of like the relationship between Iroh and also because I didn't realize like there was such a large age gap between them.
Yeah, you don't
And
really
then
see as much.
yeah, and then so probably like Ozai felt that sort of like relationship of like, you know, you have to fight your sibling or you have to like constantly like, you know, be better than your sibling was probably what he lived, right? Even we don't really know whether Iroh or not fed into that, but that's sort of like Ozai's reality for that. But yeah, I like really do like the fact that every character has a flaw. It's not like a perfect character, you know, like even Aang, who's the main character, like we see the flaw of him. Well, we kind of like learns from, like, he's not taking things seriously, and then it's not until like things start actually, like, he starts realizing the impact of him like leaving that he's like, oh, okay, maybe I should try to do something about this kind of thing. Anyone else had a character that they sort of like felt surprised by? If not, my question is, how surprised were all of you by how popular the cabbage merchant is?
Oh, I love the cabbage version from day one. Like, because I don't know if it was the same for you guys, but for me, the cabbage guy just keeps screaming "my cabbages" reminds me of the guy from SpongeBob who just kept saying "my leg," and that's like now every time I see the cabbage merchant, I'm like, he's gonna say a thing. Like, good for him for going through all of that, shit, and building a corporate empire out of
Yeah,
it.
I did.
Like, how many times must your cabbage stall get destroyed by the same children?
Resilience.
So that he didn't give up. He opened a restaurant, in the comics and everything. So he opened a restaurant, and then he saw the technology, and he's like, "Oh wow, technology and cabbages go together." Like, I really would not be surprised if in Republic City, yes, there's Cabbage Core, and everybody knows Cabbage Core, but like, I want there to still be his restaurant. Like, it's still maybe a small little hole in the wall place, but it's like the most popular cabbage themed restaurant ever. I want that to be true.
You know how nowadays, like, there's like Airbnbs that you can visit. Either you can stay in there, or they're kind of like museums where you can sort of experience what. I think now recently they have one where it's like Edna Mode's like house. And it's really cool because I just saw a video on it where like you can actually like make your own suits. I do not know how much money it costs to do this, but they'll mail it to you, and I was like, oh, that's so cool. So they have a lot of like things, because there's like a lot of like Airbnbs too that are like sort of like Hobbit themed, and those are like really cool. And I'm like, maybe we need a restaurant that's like, cabbage theme for Avatar: The Last Airbender. That's what we need.
I don't know if anybody here has actually cooked cabbage.
Cabbage.
It is not the best. I
There's only so
love
much
it.
you can do with it. There's really only so much you can do with it.
I don't know, like, this reminds me, like, as you guys are talking about, like, the other characters that we get excited to see, is that like the supporting characters in Avatar are so like pivotal to all of this. And I think Gian, he had messaged me and he said he wanted to talk about Jet, and like, yes, I know, such a good thing, like the relationship with Jet and Katara and just that entire thing. But then it just, all of the supporting characters that we see that make it so lovable, and there really is something in it for everyone. The cabbages, the music,
yeah, the secret tunnel guy.
the secret tunnel, yeah, and even just like Ty Lee and May and all of those that kind of help support the lessons that are being taught.
Listen, this is the second time somebody is like, we need to talk about Jet because Jet is important or whatever, and I don't know why, but I don't like Jet. I get so cringe. Like, I just feel like my body, like, it's full of cringe every time I have to watch the episodes. Like, the original episode where he showed up, not the one where he like died. But and I was like I think that's the one character that I'm like, I just choose to dislike this character, just like everybody in the Harry Potter fandom just dislikes Umbridge. I think for me, this is the character that I've chosen for some reason to dislike. And I'm wondering if anybody else has a character that you're like, I just don't like him.
Jet is just like I feel like he's the boy, the pretty boy that got, you know, Katara like took for a second and like put a veil over her and like pulled her away. And that's what I think of. And like that relationship was so interesting just to see how like rose covered, you know, she was in the relationship and what was going on. I feel like for at least for me, that's a reason to bring up a lot of like, ugh, not him, you know. Like, and when they brought him back, she's like, why should I trust you? And I'm like, don't trust him. You know?
He never like, similar to Azula, we got explanations, but he never got that redemption, and that's okay. Again, not every villain, you know, gets redeemed, but like I didn't actually like his redemption because it seemed kind of just so like sudden and just so like superficial. Because it wasn't based off of any like internal growth on his part. It was just kind of circumstantial. It was like, oh, he got, you know, brainwashed, and that was his redemption, was brainwashing him. I mean, I don't know about the other therapists in this virtual room, but I don't think that that's like a good way to do it.
No. It would be faster
So
than having people reflect and change.
right. Oh my God, if I could, and I could do it in an ethical, humane way, then sure.
You're actually a good person.
If only it worked that way.
No.
But like,
I think for me it would be like just do more self-care, man. Right? Like, take
oh God.
Okay, so we kind of talked about mental health, but I have a question for Sarah. Like, did you use any of this sort of like in your own business, like fitness business, or is it just sort of kind of like a side thing that you do for fun?
Kind of both. I would say being a personal trainer, I kind of do feel like an unlicensed therapist a lot of times. You know, these people are coming in, they're being very vulnerable. They don't want to be in a gym setting. They don't feel confident usually at first. And so I do talk about Avatar, like I find kind of like what is the client is interested in, like, you know, what kind of shows are you watching, and especially with like the live action that recently came out, kind of was like a good segue. Hey, have you seen like this new, you know, live action on Netflix, like the original? You have to watch it if you haven't watched it already. And a lot of my clients have watched it, so they kind of like get it all. And so kind of a lot of like the conversations that we have to do a lot with like mental health, because, you know, it's all connected. You know, everything's connected, physical health and mental health and just the overall well-being. And so yeah.
So I'm gonna start with you, Sarah, because you were just talking, and I like these questions for everyone else. So one of my favorite things about Avatar is just this idea of balance. So like, if you kind of had to talk to the audience about the importance of balance in what you do for your job, what would that conversation be like?
Was that for Sarah?
Oh, I thought you said Sierra.
Oh,
after
no, I meant you, Sarah. Sorry.
That was for me. Sorry, can you reframe the question?
Yeah, so like this idea, so like one of my favorite things about the Avatar universe is this whole idea of balance. Like everything has to be in balance. So like, if you had to, let's say you have like a new person that's coming to you for, you know, whatever it is that your profession is, and this is again for everyone else here as well, what would that conversation be like? Like, how did you discuss balance? How important is balance in what you do?
Balance, as far as physical balance, is important. I guess if you want to say that, like, you know, we could do a lot of stability, but as far as like mental, like balance is like everything. Like, what is, I guess, overwhelming them? You know, like where are they spending like too much time? What do they want to be spending time on? time blocking kind of is like a theme that I've talked to some people about. Like they're like, well, I just don't have time like to do this. Like when they're not in the gym, you know, and they want to like improve on, you know, getting more flexible. I'm like, can you literally take 2 minutes to do these 2 stretches? And you know, so it's just kind of balances finding the time and like what you really want to be doing, what you want to be getting better at. And if we're too tipped on one side, right, obviously we're not going to be in balance. And so it's kind of like, what do we have to take away to kind of get a little bit more like even and like aligned? I talk a lot about too on like, you know, values, on like, well, what are your values, and are your values aligning with your actions? And you know, how can we stay in like alignment with what truly matters and is important to us? So if health is important to you, you know, you're feeling like crap, you know, maybe spending 30 minutes planning and prepping some like, you know, food meals like throughout like the next couple days and like things like that even.
That's always my excuse. I just don't have time to exercise. So now you debunk that, and they're like, no, balance. And I'm like, great.
Actually, so in the RPG, the actual Avatar RPG, there's a mechanic called balance. And the thing that I really love about it is that it's usually two opposing things, but that are really important to you, right? So like my one character that I'm playing is the idol. So he's like really traditional sometimes, but then wants freedom at the same time. And so like through the whole game, I have to figure out how to balance this character who was, you know, grew up on tradition, you know, and being lawful good basically for any of those D&D players out there. But who actually wants their own freedom to figure out what they want to do and, you know, how they want to interact with the world and things like that. So like whenever people say balance, I'm like, there's literally a mechanic. And when it comes to, you know, as a therapist, I think, you know, Elizabeth, you had mentioned it earlier, like you have caring for others and then caring for yourself, right? Like those are two kind of opposing things. You know, you can't do both at the same time usually. So you have to balance out, you know, okay, how do you care for yourself so that you can care for others? You know, that's probably what I would put on my balance, either that or like focus versus fun as an ADHDer. But yeah, like if anybody looks up the Avatar game, it actually has a balance mechanic on it that you're supposed to be tracking throughout the game.
And I flipped through the book. I have other things. I supported the Kickstarter, but I have not played yet. So when I looked through it, I did realize that like this, not only because I am a relatively new player to the RPG or TTRPGs, and so D&D is very overwhelming for me because it's a lot of things you need to remember or like that you can use to your advantage, which I forget all of those. But the Avatar game is a lot simpler because not only do I know the universe, it's really simple where like you just have to keep track of like these two things, and I'm like, I can do that. And then like everything is about balance. So like I love that idea. And I have these two like posters that I got at, I think it was like 2 years ago, and at the San Diego Comic-Con. And every time I look at them, it reminds me of like having balance like in our lives, and how essential it really is for everything, not only fitness, mental health, relationships, everything. So balance, yes.
Yeah, well, and that's what in therapy, like, this is what I always see, like, a lot of the times if we have like bad experiences with someone, like our family of origin or whatever, we tend to go to the extreme opposite. Obviously that's not balance, that's pendulum going from one side to the other. And what I usually have to kind of get people to understand is that there's a balance, because some people who you know, were in really bad situations with you know, their parents or whatever, they're like the kindest people in the world, will do anything for you and sacrifice themselves and things like that. But then they find that they're sacrificing themselves so much that they're exhausted and people are taking advantage of them and things like that. So I'm like, okay, well, you have to have boundaries, and those are what kind of bring you all that balance. So again, like just in general, as humans, we tend to go to either extreme and then realize in anything that we're doing, any behavior, any cognition, any, you know, way of doing things, like there has to be a balance. There's a gray area. It's not all one or the other, right? So that's something that I find with a lot of my clients, is that balance is really important to teach, because when you don't know anything else other than the bad thing, you go for whatever you think the good thing is, and usually that's an extreme.
It's like overcompensating for like, oh, I had this bad thing, so I'm going to go to the complete opposite.
Right.
And you know, that's not always helpful. I think for me, so my previous job, I was working with people on parole who had committed you know, really bad offenses and everything. And so the discussion of like, am I a good person even though I have these bad thoughts, you know, came up a lot. And I think for me, I tried to kind of have that discussion of balance of, you can have these impulses and these thoughts and everything, but that's not all of you, right? Like the balance is, where are you within that? You know, and it definitely, there's that whole like, oh, I'm pretty sure it's you with the shadow self, right? That's Jungian. Okay, Sierra's nodding head. Good. I was just like, pretty sure, but you know, we all have that. That's still a part of us. So how do we work with those parts of ourselves that we might judge ourselves for? We shame ourselves for having these thoughts and having these feelings. I mean, for anybody who is interacting with, like, I you know, when Sarah, when you were talking to your clients about working with your values and everything, reminded me when I was in college, I went to a personal trainer and I was trying to do that, and I have always been very hard on myself. You know, the self-shame and the beating stuff up, and you know, the gym kind of environment has always been very intimidating for me, and probably for a lot of people too. And so how do we balance that? Like, okay, well, this environment might not be your strong suit, but like, is this, you know, people do sometimes need that to find their strengths, to find, you know, what they can do. I mean, it's like with Sokka, you know, he's constantly in this environment of benders, and he needs to then go to an environment that, you know, with the Piandao, he was not comfortable in that environment. He thought he was. He thought, oh, I'm a warrior, I could do, but he was not, and he had to work through that discomfort. And so I feel like the balance that I talk about a lot with clients is, especially when people start shaming themselves for things that are there, whether it's, you know, addiction or anything, you know, it's like, okay, that does not define you. It's not, you know, your label. It's not your definition. You know, this is an aspect. So where does that balance? How can we still have a whole person that has these elements to them? Isn't that what the whole avatar is? The avatar is one person that has all these elements to them. I totally right now.
Okay. Any last thoughts on this particular topic?
I did. I felt like I just had to, and we could probably do a whole nother panel on this. Just like, guys, because we definitely don't have enough time. But as soon as you brought up the question of balance, I was thinking of Korra, the book Balance, which is actually the thing, and thinking about the one difference between, you know, Airbender and Korra is the villains. And the fact that we saw so many villains in Korra each season, and they all had extreme ideologies, and most of the resolution in those are about finding the balance between their extreme ideologies. And so like even in Korra and Zahir being like with the Red Lotus, this and versus the White Lotus concept of the idea of like this order versus chaos, and how like Zahir believes that chaos is the only order, right? It's the like that we have to go to this extreme, how Charlene said, and how he finds resolution, but he also is able, he's so strongly rooted in his ideologies that he can freaking fly, right? Like that well, what it's like to like when you what you can do when you hold on to your values and these extremes, but also like the limitations of that, and when you have to come back down to earth again and kind of like reground yourself and balance yourself, and how he helps Korra, you know, later on, after he's been able to find that balance himself and find that peace. And so like I think that like that arc is one of the best. Here is definitely one of my favorite characters for teaching balance. And also using it in therapy. I think something I do is I often kind of shock my client because I go the extreme of what they're saying. Like they'll kind of give me something neutral and I'll just go like, ooh, let's make that worse. And usually they'll tell me like, whoa, you've gone too far. And I'm like, yeah, so how can we bring what I'm saying back? You know? So like I like to play with those extremes.
Yeah, I've done that also. Someone would say like, oh, well, you know, I feel this way, so I did that. It's like, oh, okay, so let's just keep going with it then. Let's go all the way.
Yeah.
Whoa, no, we can't do that. I was like, okay, so where do we go then?
Okay, so we have been talking for a while, and like Sierra said, we do have so much to talk about that we can just do a whole podcast of like panels, and we would never run out of things to talk about when it comes to Avatar: The Last Airbender. Especially because now we're getting more content, right? So I actually wanted to do this really fun activity, but I just realized that I never asked your thoughts regarding like the new things that have been announced, right? Like the new show, because I think from my understanding there is going to be like a new show with a new earth bending avatar, and we have that one movie where everybody's sort of like a teenager. Am I missing something else, or is it just those two things?
I mean, there's the
The
books
books,
also.
yes. So what do you guys think about this expansion of the Avatar universe that's sort of like set to happen in the next few years?
I am excited for it, but like with any kind of expansion of any established universe, like there's gonna, you have to be very careful to like really meld it. But if it's the same creators, then I'm comfortable with it. You know, the OG creators, they did such an amazing job with Airbender and Korra that like anything they come up with is going to be good. That's why the film that we don't name was not good. But one thing I was reading about, and I don't, this was from like a fan commentary thing, so it was nothing official about the new Avatar show with the new Avatar, the new Earth Nation Avatar. So there was this fan comic that was starting out, that was creating its like expansion, where they're like, okay, here's the Earth Nation Avatar after Korra, and like here's how the environment, the world developed since passing and everything. And it was similar but different to that fan fiction that I had mentioned earlier. This one was called Legend of Genji, and you know they didn't get too far into creating their comic, because then the Avatar creators were like, hey, we're going to do this, and so they didn't want to like compete and everything. But I was reading a lot of fan comments and saying like, hey, this Legend of Genji work was so like on point that like you should send it to the creators, and maybe they can incorporate elements of it and everything. And like I agree, like when you see that, like those fan creations that like, oh my god, like why didn't you know the creators think about this and everything. I really do kind of hope that they will kind of follow in those things, because I feel like a lot of fans wanted to see more, not just of the individual growth, but now the world building.
Mhm.
Because at the end of Legend of Korra, we have Wu is like, okay, well, it's no longer Gubernia's kingdom. There's going to be this democratically elected states, but like, what's going to happen next? We never saw what happened. Like, yes, some of the comics like started hinting at it, but they never continued it. So, well, how is that going to look like? Is every single state? So now instead of 4 nations, there's going to be like 57 or something. Like, how is that going to work world building wise? And I that a lot of fans want to see that, and I want to see that. So that's my for that.
I had this theory that I was very sure the first few years when you know how Marvel had this sort of like long list of movies that they were going to re-release in the next like 5 years or something like that, and I was totally convinced that they will go, like whenever they were working on a script for a new movie, they will go online, check out the fan fictions and other theories that people had, and they were like, we're gonna do the complete opposite. And I was like, I just know you're doing this. I know, because everybody was like, oh, here's a really fun, easy way to fix all of this, and then the creators were like, nope. We're gonna create more chaos. So yes, I do hope, because it's been a while, so I know there's like a lot of like fan fiction and like content that the fans create, because we just love it so much and we didn't have anything else, so we kind of had to, you know, create our own stuff. That I am very excited for the expansion of the universe. Anyone else want to pitch in their 2 cents about the new stuff that's coming out?
I'll say that there, if you guys don't know already or anybody else, the new comic is coming out in August. It's called The Bounty Hunter and the Tea Brewer. So June and Uncle Iroh are like highlights, and so I'm looking forward and excited about that. So that's the newest thing that's coming. So
I did not expect that pairing right there.
I know.
To start flirting with her in the show, I was like,
yeah. So.
I was like, bro, you're like twice her age. But okay, so I wanted to do this one a fun game where you have no time to think about it and you just kind of have to respond with the first thing that comes to mind, because I know a lot of these are things that we have talked about before, I'm pretty sure, like with other people, and you have a lengthy explanation of it. No explanations, just say the answer. Okay, this is going to be like a what is it lightning round. I'm just going to ask a question, everybody just I guess we can just go in the same order, where it's like Charlene, Ben, Sarah, and then Sierra.
Okay.
What?
Sierra has all the time to think.
Yes. Well, that's why you guys have to be super fast. Don't give her any time to think.
Love this game already.
All right, so it's like 10 questions, because to me 10 means balance. For some reason, I just know 10 is a good number. And that's all I could come up with like in the past like 10 minutes. So there you go. All right. What element did you choose for yourself?
Earth.
Ben.
I'm going to say Earth. I didn't use Earth, but now I have to, because it's the first answer. Okay, fine. Okay.
Sarah?
That was really hard. I feel like it would probably be fire.
Charlene. Favorite character?
Korra. Why was that hard?
Ben.
Toph.
Iroh.
Sierra?
It's definitely Iroh. Second best, I would have to say, would be Toph.
Can I change my answer to Alpha?
No. This one, I will allow a little bit of thinking. Favorite episode?
Oh.
God. But yeah, I'm just gonna go with Secret Tunnel, because it pops into my head every 5 minutes.
ADHD brain.
The episode of Legend of Korra, I don't know what it's called, where Korra is going to meet with Zahir in prison to help get into the spirit world. I don't remember the name of that episode, but I like that one.
Yeah, that's a good
Sarah?
one.
Mine, I would also have to be the Cave of Two Lovers, the Secret Tunnel, because Chong is like, I absolutely love him. Like, if he could be my favorite, even though he's in one episode, that would probably be like my guy.
Yeah.
Sarah?
So from Avatar, definitely onion and banana juice, unlocking the chakras. And then from Legend of Korra, it would have to be when she meets Toph in the cave and they try to metal bend her toxins out.
Oh,
Yeah,
I love that.
that's a good one.
Okay, and again, so this can be from either, The Last Airbender or Legend of Korra, but favorite villain?
Zahir.
Here.
Good.
Sorry, I had to say it quick.
I'm gonna say
Huh?
Kuvira.
Kuvira?
Kuvira, yeah.
Sarah?
Azula for me, and then Zahir.
Sarah.
I'm on it. Zahir, definitely one of my favorites.
Okay. That one joke you can't forget about.
Cactus juice. It's the quenchiest. It'll quench, yeah.
That's a classic.
Charlene?
You think of it, my brain is literally going blank.
I think for me,
You didn't have cactus juice.
Yeah.
It was the I'm the meat and potatoes guy. Like, I think about that all the time. And then like how quickly he just turns around and he's like, "Do you have any meat?" Sarah? Oh,
sorry.
no, go ahead.
Sarah.
Did you think of a joke?
I didn't think of a joke, but I love the picture of him in the guy's like the fish market guy where he's has a picture of Aang going and he's got the ball circling around.
Yeah. He's all like in his 30s and he's all like, "This is my best trick."
Yeah.
Sarah?
I think the quenchiest, it's the quenchiest as well. I think that's a classic, or just like really anything Sokka says. I remember watching it through for a second time. I'm like, Sokka is like just so funny. Like, it's just like these weird one-liners, and I don't know.
Mhm. Or the what is it? Friendly mushroom one? That was funny too.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just want to talk about this is my favorite. So Sarah, you have extra time to think. So it better be a good one.
I like
Sure.
the delectable tea or deadly poison. And like
Oh.
I was like looking at the tea. I always thought that was really funny. But also like just the entire scene where they're watching themselves, their characters be played out from the Fire Nation.
Yeah.
Like, that whole thing is hilarious, and how Toph just like is the only one that is like really excited about how they're being portrayed.
I'll be like, yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Sokka like brings jokes. Like, no, I wouldn't say it. Like,
Yeah, that's a good episode. I like when because like I would like to choose my next vacation at the library, and I was like, yes, I would also like to vacation at a library.
And like all his nicknames are just the best for people. Like,
True. Okay. All right.
Sokka's instincts. That was one of my favorite ones too. Katara's like funny moment.
yeah.
I like that when they were like trying to like entertain themselves when Sokka was like practicing like doing swords and stuff, and they were like trying to come up with jokes and they just couldn't. That was just so funny. Okay. Lightning round, you guys. Okay.
I have one more. Wait, I have one for Charlene.
Okay.
This is from Tenzin, and I remembered it from the beginning. The scene where Tenzin, where they come in and say all this bad stuff happens, and all you see is like Tenzin take a deep breath and go say, "I knew this would happen," is one of my all-time favorite things, because that's literally my anxiety. Like all the time.
Or when they go like wait, Stenson, when he pulls out Sokka's drawing of Appa, he's like, "I got this artifact from my uncle." Okay, focus. I'm focused. Okay, Charlene, we're back to speed round. Favorite nation?
Water.
Earth.
Air.
Sarah. Sierra.
You don't say fire.
Wait, what was that?
It's definitely Earth.
But you had the perfect opportunity to say fire.
I could. They don't have the best nation. They can't even
Well,
dance. They're not allowed to dance.
Well, but that's like, but in the Legend of Korra, they're better, right?
Yeah, they are.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Okay, the one character you really want to hang out with, Charlene.
Oh gosh, Asami.
Ooh.
She'd be cool to hang out.
She'll pay for everything.
I know. That's what I'm saying. She's got access to all the junk and money. Like,
yeah. Ben.
Like, okay, as a therapist, I'm supposed to say Iroh, but like, really, I just want to hang out with like Bolin or Sokka, like,
yeah.
because the antics.
Sarah.
I'll say I want to hang out with Aang and go penguin sledding.
Yes, that would be fun. Sarah.
I was definitely going to say Bolin too. Of course, Uncle Iroh, like hands down. I would love to have tea with Uncle Iroh, but Bolin just seems like such a good time.
Yeah.
And probably like Julie.
Oh yeah.
I feel like we'd get some stuff done. She would have my back. She's the ultimate ADHD like support, and I have to bring her everywhere with me.
No, you don't know how many times I've asked my friends, and I'm like, if I were to just have a personal assistant, I would get so much work done. And I was like, if somebody would just tell me, hey, don't forget you have to do this one thing, I'll be like, oh yeah, for sure, let me just do it right now.
You don't have to use your words. You can just say, do the thing.
Do the thing.
Yeah.
I say that all the time, and people look at me like I'm insane. They have no idea what I'm referencing, and I'm just like, do the thing, Julie. And they're like, what? Do the thing.
Okay, this isn't anything to like to get a boo from or anything. It's just your own personal favorite. What would you recommend more? Avatar: The Last Airbender or Legend of Korra?
I love Korra. You all know that.
I'm gonna go with Korra also, actually.
Okay, Sarah?
I'm gonna say Avatar.
Sierra?
I know I have to always be dependent on, but it would really depend on age, I think. Because I think a younger audience, I would probably do Avatar. I think like an older audience, I would recommend Korra because the themes are just, I think, a little more political and complex.
Yeah.
So, one sentence. I will allow a bit of thinking for this one. Okay. If you came across someone who knew nothing about Avatar or Legend of Korra or anything, what is one sentence or like the first sentence that you would say of why they should watch?
Can it be a run-on?
They bend
Can be a what?
Have a run-on sentence.
It can be a run-on sentence.
No, they literally can bend elements like fire, earth, water. I just tell them like they can literally like, create, water spouts and fight each other with, snowballs. Like, who doesn't want to watch a show about element bending?
Okay. All right. Cool. Ben?
Okay, why should someone watch a show that they've never heard about or they know nothing about? Yeah, like a really good mix of action, adventure, drama, and also like really deep themes. And also there's a like mystical like hard magic system and everything that is in it. Yeah, I'm gonna end it there. That's a long enough sentence.
Okay, Sarah?
I guess if I'm telling somebody about it, I'm like, okay, well, you want some like magic, you want some wisdom, you want some joy. Just because it's a cartoon doesn't mean it's for kids only. So yeah, I kind of try to keep it like simple, but with some good like keywords to draw them in. Yeah.
Sarah?
I think I would say like it's time for you to look inward and start asking yourself the big questions. Why haven't you watched it yet?
Who do you want?
The first question is like, what's wrong with you? Haven't you seen it? It's been out forever.
Where have you been?
Yeah,
Have you
I think because I always try to recommend it to my clients, especially clients that don't necessarily identify with geek culture in general. And I'll say something like, listen, it's got everything. It's so funny, great character growth, and it's like fun for the whole family. Like it just like everyone can watch it, and it's good. So you should just listen to me and watch it. Like that's all you need to know. Just do it.
Do it.
Because I said so.
All right, this is the last one. All right, I can go with 2 on this one if you must. What is your favorite animal in the Avatar universe?
Like a species of animal or character animal?
Character animal.
Appa, straight up. But also the badger moles. I just love the badger moles. They're amazing. They taught everybody earthbending.
Yeah, character animal, Appa. Species animal would probably have to be that one random cat owl that we saw fighting with Momo in Appa Last Day. Because that's just an interesting animal mix. Cat owl.
Sarah?
Appa, hands down.
Sarah?
I would have to say Appa, definitely. Appa and Momo,
Yeah.
that's even together. But I'd like to remember the Tigerdillo. I just thought that was funny.
Yeah.
I love the whole scene where they're like, what kind of like pet bear is it? And then they just went through a whole list of like different kind of bears. And they're like,
Yeah,
no, it's a bear.
none of us said Bosco. Oh my god, I'm changing my answer to Bosco.
Oh yeah,
It's a bear.
I
and also you have to add in the lion turtles, like
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
because
Yeah,
that was,
those are
the beginning,
Yeah, there is just something freaking
All the-
adorable about turtle ducks. I just can't I just want to squish them. All right, so we will end it at that. And now I'm realizing it's been like I was like, oh, it's only like 11:30 right now. It's not gonna take that long. It's lightning round. It did take. Okay. So if anybody wanted to reach out to you for a consultation or for some sort of service, or they just want to check out the stuff that you have online, where can people find you?
Same order.
Or do you have any project exciting that you want people to know about?
Okay, you want us to go the same order, or
Yeah, it's just easier.
Okay. Right. So, you can find me, Charlene McPherson, at Nat20 Therapy all over the internet, on all the socials, Instagram, TikTok, all that fun stuff, and Facebook. And then that's also my website, www.nat20therapy.com. And I think that's it.
Podcast.
You can email me at info@nat20therapy.com.
Your podcast.
Oh, podcast. Yeah, Ben usually reminds me to do the podcast.
I'll just say the 2 podcasts. So you can find me, Benjamin Tights, through the 2 podcasts. One that I do with Charlene, Mental Health Quest, which is found wherever podcasts are found on all the social medias at MHQ Podcast. You can also email us out there at mentalhealthquest1@gmail.com. And my other podcast, My Hero Therapy, where all podcasts are found, and on all the social medias at My Hero Therapy. Email there at myherotherapypodcast@gmail.com. Yeah.
Oh, well, don't forget to say if you are open to any sort of collaboration in the future with other people, or
I thought that was a given.
just in case. Okay, Sarah.
You can find me on Instagram at iRoadTraining for personal training inquiries, at Soul Fitness Elements, And definitely I'm open to any future collaborations about Avatar or health.
Sarah?
You can find me on where you found me on Instagram. It's Jasmine Dragon.counseling. And then I'm also on Psychology Today as Sierra J. Cuevas. My middle name's Jasmine. So this might be like a thing. Throw that in there. So there's an extra element there. So Psychology Today gives you straight the link to all the other ways to work with me for counseling, visual therapy. And of course, I'm also on Discord and a lot of the, geek therapy Discord servers as well. I like go to tags and things like that. And so of course, I'm open to collabs and getting more involved in the community in that way.
And speaking of collabs, I forgot one more thing. If you want to see the Avatar the RPG game played, I actually play with a colleague of mine, Daniel Hand, on his channel at RPG Therapist on YouTube.
Yes.
He's a really cool guy. You should all go watch his channel.
It's a lot of fun. I have a mongoose lizard and they just cause chaos. It's amazing.
If you want to see Daniel like just ripping his hair out, that's where you can find it.
I played on Magpie Games like Discord server a few times, and each time I play, I still if I want to GM it, I always struggle to do the balance. So anyone wants to teach me the balance part? I feel like I have that D&D mindset that I'm like, what does it do functionally?
Yeah, exactly. Nothing,
right? Like I'm missing something, but maybe that's the point.
Yeah. All right. So make sure you subscribe to the Psychology for Geeks for Psychology for Geeks YouTube for a lot of more of this, a lot of different panels, a lot of interviews. I know I mentioned I did one with Ben. I've also one with Charlene. Coming up next is one with Sierra and then one with Sarah. Once I get my life together, once I get my Julie, then I can get all this done, you guys. And then there will be like I have tons of more panels planned. Please, you know what, we do want to, because this whole thing honestly is just for us to geek out, for you to learn more about mental health and check out like the resources that are available in your area as well. But we want to connect with other Avatar geeky people. So post your answers in the in the comments, like what are your lightning round, which was a really long lightning round, but what are your answers to those questions? Let us know. And if you have an idea of another panel that you would like, or you have extra questions for anybody here in this panel for potentially the next Avatar panel, also let us know in the comments. And check out at Psych for Geeks. It's so Psych the number 4 and Geeks in pretty much any social media. We're also we also have a Patreon, and we have a Twitch account, which I am trying to go back to streaming hopefully soon, once I figure out how to do it again. And you would know when things get released, because I don't know. I don't have a Julie yet, so I'm not exactly sure when things are coming up. So it's best if you just follow and subscribe, and you'll sort of like get the heads up of when things are coming to you next. So yeah, thank you again so much, everyone. I had a lot of fun. I would love to do this again. Thank you for taking time from your your weekend to come in and do this and geek out with us. So thanks.
Yay.
And with that said, we hope to see you in the next whatever I end up doing next. And don't forget to reframe and re-enchant your life, and we'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye.